9. Second to last one.
I almost got away with not getting my hand covered in honey.
Oh, you look like a
hungry
hungry
bear. I was like so careful. I was like playing Operation, trying to get like the wishbone out or whatever.
Yep.
Got me.
And then your nose itched and you're like, I got honey on me. Going in for number 10. Watch the spoon.
Oh no. Good enough.
Number 10.
So messy.
Last one. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at all that honey.
It is. It smells amazing. I always loved that honey lotion. You probably.
What? What's that? I can't risk my man card. Come on, honey. Come on, melt Mr. Honey. If you guys think getting a tablespoon of honey to melt in your morning coffee is hard, try melting 2.5 pounds of honey. It doesn't want to melt. It's looking better. Oh yeah. I'm glad we got the crazy long spoons. They're perfect for this.
Yep. Are we doing it? Are we finally making mead?
I know, right?
It's only been months.
Actually,
probably July, so not quite half a year.
Well, we haven't made mead in 2 years.
That's true.
We never got around to it last year because somebody was trying to build a house. And so what did we do? We just didn't.
Last year we didn't. We only canned a little bit.
We didn't have room.
I think we canned one round of huckleberries. That's it.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen, but this is totally happening. And we've stockpiled a bunch of fruit this year. Alyssa was super careful this summer and set aside from each of the things that we foraged to have some for numerous batches of mead, which only works because we have a deep freezer that we actually have room in. And we're always looking for a way to preserve this fruit for later. We did make some jam, we made some ice cream. What else did we do? That's about it. Salsa. So we threw some of it in the freezer knowing this day would come, and we said, well, we can deal with that stuff come winter. And we're finally there. So what we're making is a honey wine with fruit. A lot of people, like, this is actually mead. If we just put yeast in here, we have what's called a must, M-U-S-T. It's honey and water and yeast. That's pretty much it. A couple other things. But we're gonna be adding fruit to each one of these things. So if you wanna be super fartsy technical, this is called melomel. And each one of these will produce a very different mead. If you didn't add the fruit, you could just kind of play with these and try to figure out how to get different meads out of the same honey. One of the ways that we first became interested in mead was actually because we were off-grid, and food preservation is really hard when you don't have modern appliances like a refrigerator and a freezer. And what we found is that there's a ton of food available for free. A lot of it we could just forage. Some of it's just on public land, some is on private land, and other stuff's just kind of in the public. And the problem is we can only eat so much jam, we can only store so much ice cream, and so how do you preserve a lot of this stuff? Well, we like wine, so we thought maybe there's a kind of wine that we could make. And we really like honey, and it turns out mead, it's just honey wine. If you use sugar, that's true wine.
We also found that things like mead are a really great gift. We enjoy building community and finding ways to say thank you to those that have helped us. And a lot of people make their own jam, but not a lot of people make their own alcohol. So nobody has ever said no when we offered them a bottle of this mead. In fact, we had people coming back for seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, and sixths.
Hey, got any more of that?
Yeah, and we feel that our mead stash, I actually have not drank a bottle of our mead yet.
Really?
Really,
wow.
I have tasted it.
Oh, okay.
It's not, I would say that we have some experimenting to do with the recipes, but also I need to work on kind of adapting my taste a little bit.
Yep.
But the point is that you can only make so much jam, you can only make so much ice cream, and you do need the freezer space to save fruit to make mead later like we did, but once it's made and bottled, you can store it in a temperature controlled climate like the garage.
For years.
So we feel that's really great. And we also feel that it's one way to take all of these wild and urban fruits we foraged and turn it into something of immense value. not money-wise per se, but more emotional-wise. And the only ingredients we have to buy are honey, and then plus some of the sanitizers, and Jesse could talk more about that later. Point is, I feel like it's a worthwhile endeavor.
So in just one summer, we managed to collect gallons of these, which are called huckleberries. And from what we understand from our followers is that not everybody knows what a huckleberry is. The simplest way to describe it is a wild blueberry. So we found a bunch of these. These are like gold where we're at. People come from all over the world to pick these, and we really like them. They make amazing ice cream, amazing jam, pepper jam, etc. So we're excited to make, this will be our second huckleberry mead. This is the first year where we've kind of had a system for food preservation, and so we were more inclined to get more food. The last couple of years we've been kind of reluctant to get too much stuff because we don't really know what we're doing. So this year a neighbor had a huge raspberry patch, and they were generous enough to let us pick all that food, and we got to keep half of it in exchange for canning their half. It was a pretty sweet deal because we don't really have access to raspberries. They know some lady, and they didn't disclose who, which I think may be strategic, who has blueberries, and she sells them I think for like 20 bucks a gallon. Something ridiculous. If you've bought blueberries by the little tiny bit in a store for like 10 bucks, you know what we're talking about. And then we managed to pick 40 gallons. What was it, 20 gallons?
40 gallons of apricots. 40
gallons of apricots from one tree. And we made salsa and jam and all kinds of stuff. And, well, we still had apricots left, so we saved a little bit. Figured, what could go wrong? Let's try to make mead out of it. That one ready to go in?
I think so.
I think it's ready.
Can I dumper?
Yeah.
Every once in a while I get the urge to buy a white t-shirt for my non-work days.
Yeah.
But dumping hot huckleberry mash into buckets of liquid is what I do on my off days. Dark colors are really best.
Yeah, this stuff is brilliant purple.
Ready?
Yeah. Uh-oh, fog the lens. Nice.
Should I give her a stir?
Nope, don't even need to stir it.
No, good enough.
Yep. When we started looking around, we actually found a wine shop somewhat near us, and they're super helpful. The gentleman there's a lady there too. They're both home brewers, and they had a lot of knowledge. So we kind of went in there looking like rookies, and they gave us kind of the tour around the store, kind of outlined us on the gear and the rigging that you need. And we bought a lot of stuff, which we weren't really excited because we're like, man, this isn't about saving money. I mean, it's not saving money, but we knew we needed kind of the right tools to do the job. So we invested in that. And I'll just say that about home brewing, it's a bit of an investment up front. So don't do this to make alcohol cheap. It's more about just kind of, I don't know, having fun or making a hobby out of it.
Meat are you most excited about?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm kind of excited to try them all because our first batches of mead, there's a lot of information on the internet, and it talks a lot about basically aging the meads. And I totally agree because you said you haven't really tried the mead yet. And I'll say that when we first brewed it, maybe after 2 months, it wasn't really that great. It kind of tasted like watery fruit.
I know people that, the guy that introduced me to mead, he would let it sit. He had some stuff for like 2 or 3 years. And
yeah.
Wow, it was such a treat.
Yep.
His mead was on the very, very sweet side.
Okay.
Which I liked, because I'm kind of a Moscato wine drinker.
Yep, dessert wines, yep.
That's kind of like, yeah, my level of wine.
Alyssa's a hummingbird.
Where I'm a hummingbird. Where my parents like really dry wine, so their mead is really dry.
Yep.
There's something out there for everybody.
Exactly. Some good looking fruit.
This makes me miss thimbleberries.
Oh, thimbleberry mead would be yummy.
Having a lot of thimbleberries would be a labor of love.
Well, we'll get there. So we're actually warming this fruit just to break it down a little bit. First of all, it's frozen, but we're actually doing that to release a lot of the sugars and the natural yeasts that are in the fruit. And we're actually going to kill, I said it, we're going to kill the natural yeast that's in this stuff so that it doesn't taint the ferment. And we'll kind of talk about that in just a second. But we've got to kind of get it into a mash, and then we'll put it into the must. Our brewing shelf is still a work in progress. A lot of this stuff we've just purchased we hope to learn to make a lot of these products. Ginger is something we clearly enjoy, from like a kind of a ginger alcohol to a strong ginger soda, which are great for Moscow mules, and then just regular like ginger beer or a ginger soda type thing. But this guy right here, it's not labeled correctly. That's not a root beer. This is the last surviving bottle of our mead. The reason it's in a beer bottle is we actually made a deal with the local brew shop. We traded them some huckleberry jam for a couple cases of beer bottles, and we came out definitely ahead in the deal. These bottles have been great to gift. We have a neighbor who bought some ciders and found these really large, I think they're half a gallon or something, or they're 1 liter flip top bottles. We're excited to use these. We'll be sanitizing them. Those are really nice. We actually found out that you can buy them in smaller versions. I think these might be a pint. And oh, they're 16 ounces. There they are, duh, right in front of me. These are nice just for like short-term storage. If you wanted to, you know, bottle something for a couple months and open it, and you don't want to go through the actual bottling process. But there actually is a tool that we're going to be using to add caps to our own bottles. Our first batch was done on a budget, big time. And the free bottles that we got helped us a lot. Bottles can be a big part of the expense of brewing, and especially like us, if you're going to give them away, well, you're basically giving away quite a bit of your investment. What we have been doing is saving a lot of bottles, but what we learned from the first round of mead making was that you take a lot of pride in making it because it takes months to make good alcohol. So this year, I think we're going to try something different. We're going to invest in some beautiful bottles so you can see the product and kind of enjoy it visually, not just for drinking. Honey is kind of a fun product because we found a local apiary that actually works at the farmer markets in the area and some of the Celtic festivals. If you guys didn't know, the Celtic people, they like their mead. They might even call it grog, I'm not really sure. Anyway, they like their mead, and so they actually use a lot of honey. And we found this actually at a Celtic festival, and then like I said, we ran into them at a farmer's market. And I'll just say it's amazingly affordable compared to the stuff that's in the stores. And of course, we love the fact that this is local. These bees are actually not too far from us. So it's actually a nice way to support local businesses also. So done right, you could actually make this product from everything local. If you do it really right, you could even make all this stuff from probably less than a mile from your house if you live kind of in the country. Another reason that we were not kind of in a rush to start the mead is when we did this 2 years ago, our cabin, we actually started it in the summer when fruit was available, right? The problem is our cabin we have no way to control the temperature in there. So it was as high as like 102, 103 degrees in the cabin. And we learned that the yeast that you use is kind of sensitive to temperature. It doesn't really like it cold and it doesn't really like it hot. So basically it likes it room temperature or a little warmer. And we really didn't have any way to protect the must while it's brewing. So now that we've kind of got that under control, life's getting a little more comfortable, it's a great time to start these brews. And I think winter is a great time to let everything kind of go, and then sometime, you know, in spring we can bottle it, and it'll probably be drinkable, well drinkable by fall, or maybe even next spring. Space is also a premium. I've seen other people actually use their spare bathtub. If you have like a two bath house and you don't use the one bathroom, a lot of people end up keeping a lot of the stuff in the bathtub. One, if it flows over, explodes, or any other exciting things, you can just wash it down the tub. But it definitely takes a lot of space because once we get really rolling, this bottom shelf's going to end up being full of must buckets, and then this lower shelf here will be through re-racks, and then, you know, we'll have bottles up here. So of course we're kind of doing this on a level most people probably wouldn't do in a house, but the point is definitely be ready to need a little bit of space to make these things work.
This one frozen chunk is being stubborn.
Oh man. Raspberry mead coming right up.
Which one's raspberry?
I don't know. Raspberry.
Coming in.
Okay.
Wanna grab the
Yep.
spoon?
Oh yeah.
Doesn't that smell amazing?
Makes me want to make more raspberry ice
Man,
cream.
winter hasn't started yet, but this makes me miss summer.
Right? Ugh. Apricots are catching up fast.
It's getting there.
Slowly melting out of the block
I
of
keep
apricot
flipping
ice.
the block because
Yeah.
what's on the bottom I can
Yeah.
scrape off and it builds up the liquid to heat it. And it's a process.
Nice, okay. So we invested in some very specific buckets for brewing. The one on the right, we had a bunch of fasteners for our house, and the one on the left is a proper brew bucket.
This one we got for free with the
Yes.
fasteners. This one we paid
$15 for.
$10 worth. There's that.
Yeah. I think over time we're going to learn the value of just standardizing everything and having brew
Yeah.
buckets for everything, but we'll just work with it. The nice thing is that the must or the mash, it only stays in these for a very short period of time. It's really what's called the primary, and usually it's about a week or so. We'll kind of show you how that process works briefly. And we think this is going to work better because there's units of measurement, and the buckets are actually a little different shape, which works really well. They're kind of tall and somewhat narrow. So if you're interested in this, give them a look. Some people swear by only brewing in glass or stainless steel. This is of course a more budget route. We have just a few things that we need to add to the must, and we're going to be adding them at different stages. So to start out with, we're going to add what's called a Camden tablet. And the point of this product is actually to kill any rogue yeast that might be present in the fruit. You really want to control the yeast action so that you get a predictable product. If you just throw yeast in with the yeast that's in the fruit, like wine yeast, and then you throw it in with native yeast, you're going to get a really wacky brew. The yeasts are going to compete against each other, and you might even just lose the brew altogether. So Camden tablets knock out the native yeast in the fruit and allow the yeast that you add to do its job. And then we get to feed the yeast with a nutrient, and this will help the yeast to get started. And once it gets kicked into high gear, it'll start doing its job, and that's eating the sugar that's in the honey. And of course that will produce alcohol, which is the ultimate goal. If we don't have enough nutrient to get the yeast kick started, the brew takes a little while to get going, and well, it just takes longer, and you might not get as good of a brew. And then we're going to be adding pectic enzyme, and this product just helps clarify the wine. It helps the pectin in the fruit to not cloudy the mixture. So that's just a small perk. You don't have to use pectic enzyme. It's not that big of a deal. Like this says, it does increase the yield, and you'll see when we get further in the brew process the amount of just material that comes out of this stuff in order to get it clear. It's pretty incredible, and this stuff will help with that. We're going to be adding just a little bit of superfood, but not right now. We're going to start that once we actually begin the fermentation process and we re-rack everything. A lot of these recipes in this book help by giving you a starting specific gravity, and this is to ensure there's sufficient sugar, I believe, to ensure you get a proper yield of alcohol. If there's not enough sugar, like if you're using a concentrate from the store or something like that, you may have to add sugar, obviously, to get up to a sugar content to get the alcohol content you're after, like in this recipe. So there's a real simple way to do that. This device is a beaker and a specific gravity checker. There's actually a really important name for it, but I can't remember what it's called. And you can get this at your brew shop. Basically, you just add enough of your must or your brew to this beaker, or whatever it's called, and then slide this little guy down in there, and then you can read the specific gravity on the scale. And this helps you determine, A, are you starting with enough sugar, and B, when is all the sugar gone? And then when it's gone, it'll actually tell you what the alcohol by volume is of the brew. So this little guy is kind of important in fine-tuning your methods. So it looks like we're at about 1.09. And this says we want to be at about 1.10. So we're really close. I mean, within a tenth That's probably good enough.
Not worth fussing over.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how accurate this stuff is, but we're definitely not 1.
Right.
And we're definitely not 1.2. So in theory, once the yeast does its job, we'll be back down to 1 and all the sugar's gone. So the sugar is what's making this have a higher specific gravity. So we know we're starting with a 1.9. We'll actually write that on each of the buckets so that later when we go to check it, we should see that dropping as the yeast consumes the sugar.
You're only doing that more graceful because you can actually fit the pin in there.
Because there's actually a handle, yeah.
We have something really embarrassing to admit on camera. So it's calling these apes, blues,
Hucks
rasps,
and hucks or something.
and whatever.
Yeah.
And I said, that reminds me of a song. What song is it? And I was like, oh, I know, like Ooples and Banunus. And Jesse's like, what the heck? I said, you don't know the song? I like to eat apples and bananas. He doesn't.
I have no,
Guys.
I've never heard that in my life.
Whew.
Not in my life. What is
You're
it?
in for it.
Oh. Oh, how different our upbringings were.
Every kid knows that song.
No.
In case there's any other poor souls out there that don't know this childhood song, it's I like to eat apples and bananas. And you repeat it again and again with all of the vowels. So A is eight apples and bananas. E is eat apples and, or eeples and baninis. I is eiples and bananas. Some people are gonna love watching Jesse be a father. Do you feel cultured?
All right, here's the deal. My kids might not know Banunus, but they're gonna know how to make mead. Which one do you want? Pick your battles.
Well, they're not gonna be able to drink the mead, so it'll be hard to motivate them.
Right. Oh, so you don't want to like.
Here, I'll let you stir.
You don't want to oxygenate the
Gotcha.
the must. You want to just move it around a little bit. So this will yield what? There's 16 ounces in a bottle, so there's 8 bottles in a gallon. So there will be 32 bottles.
Right, that makes more sense.
32 bottles yield. That's pretty good. Which one do you think is going to be the prettiest when we go to rack the mead?
Raspberry.
You think so?
I do.
Is that this one?
Orange is easy to screw up. It's easy for it to not look appetizing.
Oh, true.
And to me, the blueberry and the huckleberries are gonna be so dark
Yeah.
that when you hold it up to light, I mean, they'll be purplish, but the red I think is just gonna be beautiful.
Yeah, it'll be really pretty. We're going to be using, I believe, a champagne yeast for these brews. These little packets are just a couple of dollars, and we buy them from the brew shop. This little packet, I think, will make up to 5 gallons. So we'll actually be using a portion of this packet per bucket. We're not going to put the yeast in yet. We actually need to let the must cool down overnight, and then we'll actually pitch the yeast tomorrow. And when we do that, we'll add a little bit of the superfood. So the brew process from here basically looks like this. We're going to end up covering these overnight and let them cool down, kind of let everything just sit. Tomorrow we'll actually pitch the yeast, and then we have about a 6-day wait somewhere in there. We'll be checking the specific gravity, and in about a week we're actually going to take these and re-rack them into what are called carboys, or a glass jug. Then we're going to add an airlock, and that's really when the fermentation process really begins. And some people call that a secondary. It's called primary fermentation. And so a lot of the fruit at that time will go away, a lot of the solids and the pulp and things, and it'll start to become more mead or wine-like. So that's it for tonight. We're gonna get some sleep. We'll pitch the yeast in the morning, and then we wait. So you is you want to eat ooples and bananas? Is that
Oot,
right?
oot, oot.
You want to oot. Oh, so I see. So if you want to
Ite.
ipples,
Ite.
ipples and baninis?
Ipples
and bananas?
bananas.
Bananas, gosh, I'm so far to go. Oh, I quit, I give up.